Chapter 17. The dimly lit corridor was coming to an end, and Francis could vaguely make out the shapes of two men standing in front of a door. As they approached, the men asked to see the invitation, and just for one moment Francis forgot that one had been handed to him earlier and looked confusedly at Vincent. On seeing Vincent's equally puzzled look, he reached into his jacket pocket and handed the invitation on to one of the men. The man inspected the card and handed it back to Francis, who returned it to his pocket. The security guards opened the door and both Francis and Vincent entered. "Vincent, do you know that I didn't even look at the invitation before just showing it to those men? I presume that I was allowed to bring a guest?" Francis joked as they approached what appeared to be an extremely impressive bar set within a large room, with exposed brick walls and gentle lighting emanating upward from the floor. The auctioneer's podium was at the front of the room, with a large screen behind it. "Vasil must be having quite a time trying to explain to all of our guests where Melissa and I have disappeared to." Having gone through security, Vincent had explained that they would have to wait for about half an hour before being invited in. The bar top was varnished oak, the likes of which would make one extremely hesitant to lay a fingerprint, let alone a glass. Francis proceeded to flick through the catalogue that they had picked up just past security. All of the items which would be available to the highest bidder were neatly contained within the several pages. The barmaid slipped 2 square wooden coasters down on the bar before placing their drinks down upon them. She wore a nice blue suit with a white shirt unbuttoned to the second button, revealing a small gold cross which she wore around her neck. Francis's attention was drawn away from the barmaid's apparel to the selection of alcohol at her disposal. He had never seen anything quite like it. The spirits hung suspended on the wall behind her in uniform crystal bottles. The spirit brand was cut into the crystal, but it was difficult to see the detail from a distance. Francis was certain that the intricacy must have been amazing. Diverting his attention away from this, he looked down at his drink, which had been served to him in a thick crystal glass. Small beads of condensation had slowly formed on the outside of the glass and were slaloming their way down the cut crystal. Vincent's glass was smaller and only a little larger than a shot glass. Francis had told Vincent that he wanted to drink a lime club soda before going to the bathroom, and so was not sure what it was that Vincent had ordered for himself. It looked like vodka, and it was certainly a clear spirit. Picking up his own glass, he looked inquisitively at Vincent and asked, "What have you got there?" "Rakia," answered Vincent. "Never had it before coming to this country. Do you like it?" "I think I did hear someone mention it, but no, I never have tried it," said Francis, raising his eyebrow. "If I had known we were having a proper drink, I wouldn't have ordered this," he said, looking down disdainfully at his club soda. "It's not a problem," said Vincent, turning to the barmaid, who stood attentively behind the bar. He asked for one more rakia and turned back to Francis. "It's a brandy, distilled plums. Being as it was so cold outside and I don't think that I've totally thawed out, I thought that I would get something to warm me up a little. Plus, I do like a little Dutch courage." Looking towards the barmaid, her back turned to him, Francis could hear the rakia being poured into a small crystal glass akin to the one which sat before Vincent. Staring with profound curiosity at the drink which now sat before him, he stood and beckoned Vincent to follow him to a more secluded table away from the bar. Whilst their backs had been turned, more people had arrived and were now sitting scattered around the room. Taking his seat first, Francis scooted around the bay seat, which was set into the wall. Vincent moved his chair slightly to one side so that they were not face to face and so that they could both have a view of the other guests. "Under normal circumstances, I would find this place to be otherworldly, Vincent, but since hearing what you told me earlier this evening, I've been thinking," said Francis. "If this artifact is located somewhere here in Bulgaria, don't you think that the Bulgarian government will mind that it's being sold to the highest bidder here tonight?" "They might mind," whispered Vincent. if they knew that this auction was taking place. We probably shouldn't talk much about it here. Picking up his lime soda, Francis raised his glass to his lips, only noticing at the last second that his hand was shaking slightly. The situation was clearly affecting him, but quickly scanning the bar, he was relieved beyond words that there were no familiar faces looking back at him. Francis felt that he would like to be invisible at this point, or better still, back at home with his wife, children and friends. Putting his glass down, he tilted his head whilst looking towards Vincent and raised his eyebrows in expectation. Vincent raised one eyebrow and a smile crept across one side of his mouth. He opened his mouth slightly as he drew breath and paused. "We have time, but first, I want you to raise your glass," Vincent said as he picked up his chalice of rakia, with Francis following suit. Putting it forward, Vincent and Francis touched their drinks together before Vincent quickly raised his glass to his lips and downed it in one. Francis did the same and quickly realized the potency of the spirit. His face turned a gentle shade of red as he winced with his right eye, which he felt was tearing up slightly. Vincent sat with a content smile as he looked at Francis, who quickly recovered. "That was very nice. I can't believe I haven't had any of that before." Vincent paused momentarily and leaned back in his chair. With a quick glance over his shoulder to check whether there was anybody within earshot, he leaned forward once again, placing both elbows on the table and crossing his arms. "I've been looking around the room and can't tell for sure whether the representatives of the 4 other countries invited to bid for this item have arrived yet. The thing about this place is that there's no telephone bidding, no online bidding. If you aren't here, then you're out." Picking up his rakia glass, Vincent waved it at the barmaid, who returned a smile, and Vincent hoped quite soon would bring him another drink. Turning back to Francis, he continued, "Of course, what you're probably thinking to yourself is, how can we possibly trust that this pebble is genuine? It sounds like the fancy of a delusional man. Possibly a stab at the establishment, which hadn't taken him seriously." Vincent stopped talking as he saw the barmaid approaching. She quickly put his second rakia before him and returned to the bar. Vincent, with a glint in his eye, quickly drank his second shot of rakia in a matter of seconds. "Steady on there, chap. That stuff's quite strong. I can still feel it burning in my throat," smiled Francis as he sat up on his cushioned sofa seat to take another quick look around the bar. The room was slowly filling with people who seemingly were quite at home in this underground labyrinth and who had also come to the Sheraton basement for an auction. "At least we know that if this does turn out to be a hoax, and we pay a whole lot of money, that it will be recoverable," said Vincent with a hint of trepidation in his voice. "The document which we're here to bid for should be listed as Item 2 within the catalogue, but I haven't had a chance to take a look," said Vincent as he placed his finger purposefully on the pamphlet which lay before him. Francis immediately opened the catalogue and started looking through the items. He quickly glanced at the tapestry that was up for sale as Item 1. He could only guess why the vendor needed to select this particularly grey establishment for auctioning their item, but that was clearly none of his concern this evening. He came upon Item 2, where only a photograph of the sealed envelope was shown and a brief, nondescript note underneath, from which nobody would be able to understand much of anything. "I presume that anybody who has not read one of the 5 letters which were sent to the UK, USA, France, China and Russia will have very little clue about what's being bid for here," puzzled Francis. "Exactly," uttered Vincent with an air of excitement about his voice. "It's all very exciting. I'm excited." "Do you know what time we'll be getting started?" asked Francis. "Quite soon, I think," stammered Vincent, "but I can't be certain because I've never been to this place before, so anything could happen." Hi, my name's Antony Botting, and I'm the author of the Pebble in the Dark trilogy. If you'd like to hear more of this story, please subscribe to this channel and ring the bell below. See you next time.